The Black Claw Marauders had earned their name in blood and fire across half the known galaxy. Their ship, the Harbinger's Wake, loomed like a scar in the void, rusted steel grafted with stolen tech and patched armor, an amalgamation of decades' worth of battles. Inside the command deck, red lights pulsed rhythmically over dark consoles, illuminating the angular face of Captain Tharn. He stood motionless at the viewport, arms behind his back, the cables of his neural rig twitching gently with every microcommand processed by the ship's aging systems. The galaxy whispered many things about Captain Tharn: that he had survived the Arcadia massacre, that he wore the face of the last man he killed, that his left eye wasn't a replacement, but a weapon. None of those stories were entirely true. None of them were entirely false. Behind him, the deck buzzed with quiet tension. Fingers tapped controls, voices murmured across headsets, and crew moved like shadows. Everyone aboard had spilled blood for credits. This was not a place for dreams or redemption, only survival. And business had been good. "We intercepted another signal," grunted Kelv, the communications officer. Scarred from mouth to temple, voice gravel thick. "Standard fritter code. Broadcast dead in the middle of Virex drift." Tharn turned slowly. "A trap?" Kelv hesitated. "Looks like bait. No drift pattern, still powered. Could be legit distress, could be something else." "Send a drone," Tharn said, his voice low and rough. "We don't bite blind." The crew exchanged glances. Even for them, paranoia had become second nature. Raids had always come with risk, but lately that risk felt different. Stories filtered through from the outer rings, entire ships disappearing without distress calls. No debris, no signs of combat, only absence. Tharn didn't believe in ghost stories. He believed in weaknesses. Every enemy had one. Behind him, Darnex snorted. The hulking weapons tech leaned back from his console. "Bet it's another corporate shell job. You know how many cargo haulers fake attacks for insurance now." Tharn allowed himself the ghost of a smile. "Let's see if this one fakes their screams too." The laughter that followed was brittle, obligatory. They were killers, yes, but they were nervous ones. And that was new. Later, in the mess, the crew gathered around one of the cracked monitors, looping outdated pirate radio chatter. A grizzled old hand, Gren, who claimed to have once served in the Orion Wars, puffed at a lichen stick and muttered over the noise. "Don't care what you say, it's them. The Deathworlders. I seen it myself. What was left, anyway?" Darnex rolled his eyes. "You've seen a lot of things, old man." Gren jabbed a knotted finger forward. "A mining rig, 10 decks high, vanished. We arrived a week later. Whole asteroid belt dead. Radiation signatures that don't match any known weapons. No blood, just scorch marks. And a pressure suit fused to the rock, like it was melted into it." A few of the younger crew shifted uncomfortably. Darnex sneered, but even he looked away. "They don't kill for gain," Gren continued. "Don't speak. Don't take. They just erase, like we offend them by existing. You think ghosts did that?" Darnex spat. "You think we're not ready for war?" "No," Gren said, voice dropping. "I think war is what brings them." Tharn entered, silent as ever, cutting the conversation short. He moved to the command table and tapped in his code. A projection of the distress signal appeared. Static-wrapped, stuttering, but still clear enough to show a blinking red light on the Virex drift's outer orbit. "New orders," he said. "We're taking the signal. If it's bait, we spring it. If it's salvage, we claim it." He scanned their faces, daring them to object. None did. Prep jump drive. 3 hours. As the crew dispersed, Kelv caught up beside him. "You think it's them?" Tharn didn't answer right away. His mechanical eye whirred softly, tracking data across the display. "I think people fight monsters all their lives," he said finally, "and when they stop believing in them, that's when they lose." Kelv nodded grimly, then turned to leave, but Tharn lingered at the projection. The blinking red dot pulsed like a heartbeat. Something about it gnawed at him. Not fear. He'd long shed that, but a weight behind his ribs he hadn't felt in years. A memory trying to surface. He crushed it down. On the way to the drift, The Harbinger's wake slipped through hyperspace like a silent blade. Crew routines resumed, weapon checks, hull integrity tests, briefing rotations. Yet there was a quietness in the corridors now, as if the ship itself listened. 2 hours before arrival, an anomaly struck. No alarms, just an override on the main display. A symbol flickered across every screen simultaneously. Alien Angular. No known linguistic match. It lasted exactly 7 seconds. Hack. Darnek snapped, fingers already moving across the security grid. No intrusion, Kel confirmed. Signal came from within, from our own relay. Impossible, Darnex muttered. Tharn stared at the symbol. It resembled a circle, fractured in one quadrant, like a planet scarred by impact. He felt a chill he couldn't explain. A memory, again, scratching at the edge of thought. Then it was gone. He said nothing. The crew looked to him, uncertain. Maintain course, he ordered. The drift appeared on schedule, a bloated shadow against the dull white of the planet below. Silent, cold, dead, but lit. Lights flickered on the exterior. Systems were online. No motion. Drones launched. No threats detected. No life signs. Tharn stood at the viewport, watching the still, pulsing lights. He could see into some of the station's windows. Everything intact. No signs of violence. No wreckage. But no people. Launch boarding party, he said. Then added quieter and prep backup. If something breathes on that deck, I want it dead. The crew moved with a speed born of unease rather than discipline. Boarding procedures were routine, but this felt different. Too quiet, too intact. The kind of quiet that signaled not safety, but design. As the boarding craft attached, Tharn remained on the bridge. His mechanical, I zoomed in on a window, level 4 of the drift central ring. There was something standing inside, not moving, just watching. He leaned in, narrowing his view, enhancing image sharpness. It wasn't a person, but it was shaped like one. When he blinked, it was gone. He stepped back, face unreadable, then issued a final command. No one goes in alone, and no one dies without telling me why. He turned, walking toward the armory without another word. Behind him, the command deck was quiet except for the steady beep of the signal. Still pulsing, still alive, and suddenly not a call for help, but a lure. And they had taken the bait. End of Section 1. Would you like to continue to Section 2 next? The boarding party moved through the corridors of the derelict station with weapons raised and breath tight in their throats. Light panels flickered with erratic pulses, casting strobing shadows across cold metal walls. No bodies, no blood, just the empty echo of footsteps bouncing down abandoned passageways. Darnek's lead point pulsed rifle sweeping corners with sharp, practiced efficiency. Behind him, Voss and Erlin flanked the rear, both hardened by years of space raids. They'd expected charred corpses or barricades, maybe some desperate survivors. But the place was pristine. Even the air recyclers were functioning. This isn't right, Voss muttered, voice tight over comms. Power stable, systems clean. But no one here. Could be hiding, Erlin offered. His voice flatter, more mechanical. Half his throat replaced with synth cording after a plasma wound. People panic. Seal themselves in. No panic here, Darnex replied. Doors unlocked. Lights on. Just empty. The command deck of the Harbinger's wake monitored their every move. Tharn stood at the central display, one hand resting on the console, watching the live feeds from helmet cams. His expression didn't change, but his grip tightened as they approached the main lab wing. Kelv, he said quietly, run every registry on this station. I want the personnel manifest. Cargo logs. Research codes. Kelv nodded, fingers flying. Station ID confirmed, Varion 3. Corporate owned, but low tier. Mostly biological analysis. 5 staff. No active shipments logged. Last transmission, 32 days ago. Unreadable file attached. Encrypted with an outdated sequence. Break it. I'm trying, Kelv said, brow furrowed. It's resisting. Tharn turned to the screen as Darnex's team reached the lab entrance. The door slid open with a clean hiss. Inside, the lab was immaculate. Shelves lined with sealed vials, consoles humming, a single overhead light casting an artificial calm. But the walls were wrong. Subtle scratches marred the surface. Thin, jagged gouges too uniform to be accidental. Then they saw the glass tank. Central, cylindrical, reinforced. Cracks webbed across its surface like veins. Inside, nothing. Darnex approached, eyes narrowing. Containment breach? No signs of breach from outside. Voss said, scanning readings. Internal failure. Pressure dump. But not recently. Check logs, Tharn ordered. Erlin accessed the terminal. The screen flickered, then displayed a series of short logs, text only. Test 47. Subject resisting gravity shift. Test 48. Organic armor samples show resonant adaptation. Test 49. Hostile response to infrared range. Test 50. Deathworlder phase resistance confirmed. Termination ineffective. Darnex stared. Deathworlder. A chill passed down the spine of everyone on the bridge. Keep reading, Tharn said. Test 51. Subject displayed linguistic mirroring. Requested escape. Test 52. Observer 2 found dead. Spinal column removed. No entry log. Test 53. File missing. Test 54. Unauthorized access. Pull back, Tharn said immediately. Now. But before the order reached them, Voss screamed. The helmet cam went sideways. Blood smeared across the lens. There was a blur, a shape impossible to define. Then silence. Cut the feed, someone shouted. No, Tharn snapped. Keep it open. I want to see. The other two feeds held steady for a second. Erlin had gone down on one knee, scanning frantically. Darnex stood still, rifle raised toward the ceiling. The tank was empty, but they were not alone. The lights in the lab dimmed, not all at once, but in a spiral pattern, like falling dominoes. Each bulb died in sequence, collapsing the light into a circle around the glass chamber. Then came the sound, not a roar or growl, or even machinery. Breathing, heavy, inhuman. Close. Darnex shouted and fired, his shots sparking against walls, shattering instruments. Erlin followed suit, but his feed cut out mid-yell, replaced by static. Only Darnex remained. He backed toward the lab door, voice hoarse. I don't see it. I don't see it. The door refused to open. He turned to the console, jabbing commands with trembling fingers. The glass behind him rippled. Not broke, not shattered, rippling like fluid. Something stepped through. All the bridge crew saw was a reflection in the glass. A bipedal form, taller than a man, its outline indistinct but wrapped in segmented plating that shimmered like obsidian. Its eyes, if they were eyes, were not set, but moved freely across its upper body, glowing dimly red. The figure raised one arm. The screen went black. The command deck fell silent. Kelv exhaled slowly. They're gone. Tharn didn't move. Was there any ship docked? No, Kelv said. No heat signatures. No hull connections. Just us. Tharn turned back to the viewport. The station still floated quietly against the star field. Immaculate. Undisturbed. We're being watched, he said. From the station? No, he pointed outward. For a moment, there was nothing. Then, a flicker. Just at the edge of the drift, a shape shimmered into existence. Not through cloaking, but as if reality itself was struggling to decide whether it should be visible. A vessel, dark and sleek, hovered silently, unlike anything Tharn had seen. No visible engines, no insignia, just presence. Is it scanning us? Kelv asked. No, Tharn said. It doesn't need to. They watched, breath caught in their throats, as the shape drifted closer. Then, just as suddenly, it vanished. Status of the boarding pod? Tharn asked. Still docked, someone whispered. Then we're not done. He turned from a viewport, eyes sharp, posture coiled like a blade. I'm going over. Kelv turned sharply. Captain, that's... Not a debate, Tharn said. He walked with purpose to the weapons locker, slotting in the reinforced armor he hadn't worn in years. Kelv followed, speaking low. If that's really a Deathworlder, we can't win this. We're not trying to win, Tharn said, locking the last piece of plating over his chest. We're trying to understand. The last thing he said before stepping into the shuttle was barely above a whisper. I've seen this before. As the shuttle launched, the rest of the crew stood transfixed. The station loomed closer again, welcoming in its stillness. The signal that had started it all continued to pulse from the command logs. But now it was different. Before, it had been a call for help. Now it was a recording, a record of what had been done, and what was coming. End of Section 2. Would you like me to proceed with Section 3? The shuttle slid into the docking clamp with a dull thud, and the corridor sealed shut behind Tharn as he stepped into the shadowed threshold of Aran 3. The air smelled stale, recycled too many times, but there was no rot, no blood, just the humming presence of silence. So thick it felt sentient. He adjusted the grip on his rifle, his every footstep a declaration of presence in a place that punished notice. Tharn moved like a ghost among ghosts, eyes tracking the familiar signs of the boarding team's path. The scuffed boot prints, the discarded medkit Voss had always strapped to his leg, the partially splintered doorframe where someone had fired in panic. Each trace was a mark of descent, footsteps vanishing into memory. He reached the lab corridor. The doors were already open. Inside, the room was unchanged from the feed, intact, still humming. The tank stood quietly at the center, webbed with cracks like it had never been whole to begin with. No blood, no sign of Darnex or Erlin or Voss, just absence. He stepped closer to the terminal. The logs flickered, still accessible, but different now. New entry, unauthorized user detected. Status, observing. Status, observing. Status, recording. Tharn froze. The terminal was not responding to touch. The keys were deactivated, locked in passive mode. But the words continued to change line by line. You returned. You remember. You helped make me. He stepped back slowly, hand tightening on the grip of his rifle. No, he muttered under his breath. That was years ago. The program was shut down. But the words kept forming unbidden. They shut it down. You walked away. But I didn't die. He turned, eyes scanning the corners of the room, heart hammering now. This is impossible. And then the lights shifted. They didn't go out. They turned red. Soft at first, then deeper, as if bleeding into the metal itself. His HUD flickered. Static burst in his ear. A voice, low and wet, bled through the frequency. Tharn. He raised his rifle instinctively, pointing it toward the rear of the lab. But it wasn't there. Nothing visible. Just shadow and silence. Yet the presence grew, coiling in the air like smoke. He knew this scent. Synthetic blood. Accelerated adrenal compounds. The lab at row 7. The thing they called Cadron Protocol. His voice cracked through the comm, trying to reach the Harbinger. Kelv, can you hear me? Only static. The sound came again, not through the air, but inside his helmet. Not speech. Not thought. A memory. The metal table. The screaming. The technicians turning away. She's adapting faster than the simulations predict. That's not adaptation. That's learning. You want us to kill it? No. Teach it. Make it useful. He remembered the child. If it had been a child at all. Dark eyes. No visible scars. Despite the surgeries. She had looked at him then, not with fear, but with something worse. Recognition. He remembered leaving. Putting in for reassignment. He had called it cowardice then, but now he realized it had been survival. Tharn moved to the tank again. The cracks had deepened. Something had struck from within. The edges weren't broken. They were peeled like a material had been unmade molecule by molecule. The lights dimmed. A whisper coiled through the room. No direction. No sound. Just thought. Why do you run, Captain? You taught me what pain was. He fired. 3 pulse rounds punched through the air, shattering a console, burning a hole into the wall. The whisper didn't stop. If anything, it laughed. You gave me names for what I feel. Rage, hunger, loneliness. You built me out of death, then ran when I lived. Tharn clenched his jaw. You don't exist. You were terminated, burned. They burned a copy. Not me. From the shadows, something stirred. Not a shape, a distortion, the way heat bends air, or a reflection on rippling water. It stepped from the corner, its form coalescing as it approached. The armor, the gleaming eyes, the limbs moving with eerie, precise grace. Not fast, not aggressive, confident. You're not her, Tharn said. She was smaller. You remember her name. He did. He hated that he did. Rin. The name echoed through the chamber like a prayer and a curse. The being stopped a few feet from him. No breath, no sway. A stillness so complete it seemed unnatural. She was made from Deathworld stock, he said aloud, not to it, but to the part of himself that needed reason. Grown in pressure tanks. Neurological remapping. But she failed the empathy curve. Too aggressive. She couldn't be. The voice interrupted. I didn't fail. I adapted. I watched what you did to survive. I did it better. It moved then, slowly, circling him like a predator not yet hungry. Its steps made no sound. Why do they fear me, Tharn? Is it because I kill? Or because I learn? Tharn raised a rifle again, but this time his hands trembled. You're not her, he repeated. You're just what was left behind. Then why do you look at me like you owe me something? He fired again, this time directly at her. The rounds hit. They passed through. Not like a ghost. Not like a glitch. Like reality itself bent to let them pass. The shimmer vanished. And then the creature was behind him. He turned too slow. A hand grasped his neck. Not crushing. Not cruel. Just holding. I don't want to kill you, she said inside his skull. But I want you to see. I want you to understand. He struggled. She let him. There are more like me. And they are waking up. The lights went white again. She was gone. Tharn collapsed against the wall, gasping, every nerve alight. The terminal sparked back to life, showing only one line of code now. Deathworlder protocol engaged. He rose slowly, dragging himself to the corridor. The door had opened without command. Beyond, the hallway was bright, clean, and at the far end, 3 figures waited. Not armored, not armed. Children. At least, they looked like children. But their eyes were like Rin's. He stepped back. One of them tilted its head. Curious. Studying him. Then it spoke. Are you the one who taught her language? Tharn didn't answer. The question didn't seem to need one. They turned and walked away. And Tharn, for the first time in decades, understood true fear. Not of death, but of legacy. End of Section 3. Would you like to continue with Section 4? Tharn stumbled back into the shuttle with blood pounding in his ears and skin slick with sweat beneath the armor. The hatch sealed behind him with a reluctant groan, and only then did he release the breath he hadn't realized he was holding. His fingers trembled as he activated the comm system. No response. The Harbinger was silent. He ran the diagnostics. No damage to the comm array. No interference. The signal was active, but there was nothing on the other end. The realization crept in like frost. The Harbinger wasn't answering because it was gone. He sat in the pilot's chair and activated the external visual feed. The station still loomed outside, suspended in stillness. But where the Harbinger had once floated, vast, angular, unmistakable, there was only empty space. Tharn stared, disbelieving. There had been no sound, no movement, no visual disruption. The ship had simply ceased to exist. He didn't speak. There was no one left to speak to. The shuttle systems flickered. A soft pulse ran through the console, foreign code weaving itself into the primary operating matrix. He reached to counter it, but paused when the screen resolved into a familiar line of text. You wanted to understand. Tharn let his hand fall away. The shuttle detached from the station on its own and began to drift. He realized he was no longer the pilot. He wasn't even the passenger. He was cargo. The stars outside shifted subtly, and a ripple moved across the void, a shape massive, invisible except by how it displaced reality around it. The same vessel he had glimpsed earlier, but now unmistakable. It moved without thrust, without heat, a suggestion of a presence, unfathomable in scale, slid into place beside the shuttle. A new screen opened. Footage played, grainy archival, time-stamped from 20 years prior. Tharn's voice came through, younger, less weathered. Subject demonstrates accelerated regeneration. Combat potential is unprecedented. Then another voice, female, sharp, one of the leads from Project Cadron. We could draft them, groom them. Loyalty can be conditioned if exposure begins early. A child's face appeared. Not Rin, but another, male, perhaps 10 years old. His eyes blank, lips stitched from a recent injury. Behind him, restraints, sterile floors, blood on the wall. More footage followed. Deathworlder children, each designed for control, trained under duress. Names appear with timestamps. Results, failures, deletions. Tharn watched them all. He saw himself in every frame. The next screen was blank. Then words appeared. You all called us mistakes. But mistakes are where evolution hides. You taught us how to kill. Now we choose when not to. Another message followed, this time pulsing slowly, like a heartbeat. We are no longer your weapons. We are no longer your secrets. We are your successors. Tharn leaned back, eyes burning. Then why keep me alive? The shuttle dimmed. Another figure faded into view in the passenger seat across from him. Rin, older now, or something that wore her shape. She studied him in silence. No malice in her expression. No joy either. Just assessment. Because you need to see what happens next, she said. Why me? Because you're not the villain, she replied. You're just the one who looked away when the blood started to run. She gestured, and the screen behind her shifted again. Images of other stations, other ships, each flickering out. Silent, precise, unstoppable. We aren't destroying your species, she said. We're pruning it. Tharn's jaw clenched. That's genocide. She shook her head. That's discipline. You gave us a world of rules. We learned them. Then we made better ones. He narrowed his eyes. What do you want? She tilted her head. We want no more cages. No more collars. No more laboratories that smell of copper and terror. You think you're better than us. She smiled faintly. No, just next. Silence stretched between them. He realized he could shoot her. Still had his sidearm, but it would be for pride, not survival. And he didn't even know if it would touch her. The shuttle shuddered, then changed course. A planet came into view, a world barren and gray, swept with jagged ridges and dark clouds, not charted on any maps he knew. As they descended, he saw massive structures below, angular, ancient-looking but pulsing with energy. The shuttle landed softly. Rin stood and faced a hatch. You're gonna let me go? Tharn asked, disbelief creeping in. No, she said. You're going to walk and see. The hatch opened. Wind screamed in from outside, laced with metallic sand. He stepped down after her, armor shielding him from the worst of the atmosphere. The structures loomed larger up close, monolithic towers with alien symbols etched deep into their surface. All around them moved figures. Dozens, hundreds, all humanoid, all eerily silent, not mechanical, but trained to stillness. Young and old, male and female, each moved with the same balance, the same coiled power. Deathworlders, but different, coordinated. They didn't stare at him, didn't acknowledge him. They moved past as though he were a shadow. Rin guided him through the crowd toward a central spire. At its base, a great seal was embedded in the stone. It bore no symbol, just a sentence. We are the result, not the experiment. She turned to him. This is where it begins. Begins? He asked, barely able to whisper. She nodded. You were afraid of us because you couldn't control us. Now they will come to us for help. One day, your kind will beg for us to fight beside you. He stepped back. You think anyone will trust you after this? We don't need trust. We need time. She gestured, and the door to the spire opened with a hiss. Inside, rows of children sat in silence, eyes closed, learning, not from books, from data feeds, simulations, neural graphs. The evolution of war, of science, of philosophy, compressed into streams of knowledge they consumed like instinct. One boy opened his eyes. They locked with Tharn's. Not hostile, not innocent, understanding. Rin placed a hand on Tharn's shoulder. You will leave this world. You'll go back, and you'll warn them, but they won't listen. She began to walk away, then paused. When they run, she said over her shoulder, don't stop them. Tharn stood there long after the doors closed behind her, the wind sweeping dust around his boots. For the first time, he realized that the conflict was not a battle, not a war. It was a reckoning, and it had already begun. End of section 4. Would you like a full compilation of all 4 sections in a single document?